have to extend to a part two. We're talking more about the UDJC, United Dressage and Jumping Club, here again with the founder, David Reichert. And we're going to get into more of the details, especially around the different disciplines that UDJC covers and what that looks like. But first, David, thank you so much. I mean, I already was so appreciative of the time you've given us. So thank you for being here again to really help us have the most complete understanding that we could about UDJC.
Pleasure to be here. Thank you.
So, last time, if anyone's listening to this and they haven't listened to part one, that is a really good precursor to this conversation. Last time we talked about what UDJC is, where you got the inspiration for it, why it's important. And it was a really fun conversation. And towards the end, you and I were both feeling like maybe we get into, you know, the different disciplines, jumping, dressage, hunters, and how that actually comes to life at UDJC. So I'm going to give the floor to you and I'll ask questions as my curiosity prompts them, which is often. So tell me, maybe we start with jumpers. Tell me if
Yeah.
somebody wanted to participate as a jumper, should they identify as a jumper right now, or are people coming from different disciplines, like more traditional, eventing or um, dressage, even to participate in jumpers there? Just kind of lay the groundwork for what a jumper's participation would look like for UDJC.
Okay, yeah, no problem. So most of the jumpers that come to UDJC show are actually jumpers, so we don't have a lot of dressage riders that say, "Oh, you know what, I feel like jumping today." So yeah, most of them are jumpers. And to start out with the easy part, starting at 95 centimeters and above, so kind of 3 foot-ish and above, everything is relatively normal. So we have jump off classes, we have 4 time classes, we have couple different models like Joker classes, which are kind of cool. Joker classes we typically run at the circuit shows on Sundays. That's where the last fence is kind of, you have an option, you have a regular fence or you have a narrow, high, one pole kind of nasty looking jump and you get double points. So that's kind of a fun class, but it's still, relatively straightforward for time. But what makes UDJC really different is everything that happens below 95 centimeters, because everything below 95 centimeters is judged for style. So it's completely judged on the rider. It's about how good are you as I don't want to say jumping rider. How good are you as a rider? So it's pretty much on paper, it reads very similar to equitation classes technically, but it's still very different because other than regular equitation classes where you need a $200,000 horse in order to win, even though it's judged only on the rider, supposedly, that's not the case in UDJC. So you can show up with your $200 auction pony, no disrespect, of course, and you can win the class if you're the best rider. So that's important to understand. And a lot of times things get a little mixed up from especially lower level hunter barns, not lower level hunter barns, but hunter barns that have a lot of lower level hunter riders. They think, oh, we cannot really come to the UDJC show because their hunters start so high at 2'6" and they're complicated to ride and all that. We'll talk about the hunters later, but it's very important to understand that our style jumping classes are also perfect for pretty much everybody who rides in lower levels over fences, because it's just judged on how good are you as a rider. So we look at your rhythm, your seat and aids, your balance in the saddle, your track and planning, all these things. And then people sometimes don't really understand, okay, so what does it mean, a style class? I give you an example. McLean Ward would get a very, very good score in UDJC style classes at 60 centimeters. You know what I mean? So it's like, we want to see active riding. We don't want to see anything manufactured. We don't want to see the perfectly polished end product. It's about whatever horse you have, ride it as good as possible. We don't care about adding strides to a line. That's one thing that drives me nuts. I mean, if you have a smaller horse with a smaller stride and it makes sense to ride a 7 in the 6, well, then you ride a 7 in the 6, obviously. We don't want to see polished flying changes, because a flying change is a medium high movement in dressage that requires collection and proper impulsion and all these things. So why do we try to force a flying change on a 50 centimeter kid? It makes zero sense. So we want you to realize, oh, I'm on the wrong lead. So trot, pick up a canter again, or do a flying change. But it's not like, oh my God, the kid didn't do a flying change. Ooh, that's pathetic, So we don't do that. So it's just about good riding. It's about what do you have and how well do you ride it. And it's judged with scores from 1 to 10 technically. So you get a 7.8, you get a 7.5, you get a 6.2. If you knock a pole down, you get a little bit of a deduction. If you have a refusal, you get a little bit of a deduction. But at the end of the day, it's like, we want to see good riding. Our 40, 50, and 60 centimeter classes are a little special. So that's important to understand. Even for the crossrail kids, we have a class. So our 40 centimeter style class is 4 crossrails from the trot. And they're being held, the 40s, 50s, and 60s are being held in a group format. So 4 people, four riders at the time go into the jumper ring, and the judge gives them a few things to ride on the flat. So the judge would say, everybody picks up a trot, everybody picks up a canter. We want to see some 2-point position. We want to see some sitting canter. We want to see a couple of transitions. So this little flat part lasts about 5 minutes. It's just pretty much something where the judges can see, okay, everybody has the horse under control and everybody looks good and nobody's gonna get injured in the jumping part. So that's just and then individually everybody rides the little jumping part, which is at 40 centimeters, 4 crossrails from the trot. At 50 centimeters, it's 2 crossrails from the trot and 4 little 50 centimeter verticals from the canter. And in the 65, it's a little special because the 65 always starts with a grid, with a little tiny gymnastic line, because we realized after the first couple of shows, it looks like nobody's practicing gymnastic lines at home, or not enough people. And it's so important at that stage for a rider and also for the horses that we said, okay, we're just going to put a little gymnastic line into the 65 centimeter class. So the 65 start with that. It's always the same line. It's coming from the trot, and then it's a crossrail bounce, so a little in-out bounce, then 1 stride to a vertical and 2 strides to a little oxer.
Oh,
So that's how it
fun.
starts, and then it's 5, 6 more jumps from the canter at 65 centimeter height. So those are the group classes, and they're itty bitty, So all the hunter kids, everybody who thinks, oh, but the hunters come into the style classes. They're wonderful. Every rider gets feedback. This is important in UDJC. Everything we judge, no matter in which discipline, the judge grabs a microphone and gives you feedback on the microphone for everybody to hear. And don't worry about it. The judges are nice. They're not tearing you down. They're not making fun of you, obviously. They give you a couple of good things to work on at home. And that's pretty much it. Then at 75 centimeter and 85 centimeter, they're individual style classes. So it's just like as you know it. So everybody comes into the ring by themselves. There's no flat portion anymore, no flat class anymore. You come in, you ride a nice little course over 7, 8, 9 jumps. You get your feedback, you get your score, and you go out again. And then at 95 centimeter, all the other stuff starts. Also, we have style classes also at 95, meter 5, meter 15. Sometimes we have a meter 35 for style, so that's kind of fun too.
That's cool.
So that the style doesn't disappear. Some show organizers want to put that on in higher level classes even, but normally at 95 centimeter, that's where then all the other different modes start.
So for anybody like me who is just not as acquainted with the metric system as they should be, I've been Googling as you're talking, like what heights are we talking about here? So you said 75 centimeters, that's about 2.5 feet. So that's when it starts being individual classes. And
Yeah.
before that,
So
when you were talking about 65 with the gymnastics, that's about 2 feet.
yeah,
So just to give you guys a
yeah,
little bit of a
yeah,
idea if
exactly.
you're like me and
Yeah. So the 40 centimeter, the 4 crossrails, they're just 4 little crossrail. Crossrail is almost kind of a crossrail. But then the 50s, yeah, that's like, what is that? 1'9" maybe. Yeah. And then the 60s are 2 foot. So it's small. It's small. But yeah, it's important to know that the 40s, 50s, and 65s are being held in that group format with the little flat portion. And then the 75s and the 85s are individual regular rounds.
So,
Um,
question about the scoring. You mentioned those different categories as far as like planning your line and just what like the categories you mentioned are all categories that would describe like a capable rider who's doing their job. When you say score from 1 to 10, are they being scored in those categories from 1 to 10 or jump by jump 1 to 10?
No, 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 in categories. So the scoring is a little different from the groups compared to the individual riders. So in the 40s, 50s, and 60s, we score three categories. They get one score for the seat and eights. They get one score for the little jumping part, and they get one score for what we call general appearance. General appearance means have your tack clean, have your horse clean, make sure all your stuff fits. Um, we would like to see the horses braided, and you don't have to pay a $200 braider. Learn how to braid, go to YouTube, learn how to braid or ask your trainer. And if you're good at braiding, in 10 minutes you can do 9, 10 beautiful little jumper braids. But we want to see the effort. We want to see that you come to the show and you're taking care of your horse, you take care of your equipment, you take care of yourself, and you look properly. That is part of the score. And these three scores add up to a total score pretty much. Um, so that's how the group classes work. In the 75s and 85s, it's just one holistic score that the rider gets. So after your round, it's not like every single jump individually. So after your round, the judge gives you a holistic score for your round.
Nice, I love that. Okay, and then you were starting to talk about the higher classes, which could be more along the lines of what the lower classes are, like stylistically judged, or they could be more traditionally judged.
Yeah. So that just depends on the show. Depends on what the show organizer wants to put on. Some show organizers say I love jump off classes, and then they decide every single, let's say, meter 20 class is going to be a jump off class. Or they say I love the joker classes, so every Sunday I want to have a joker class. A lot of times, if you look at our circuit show schedule, it's something like on Fridays, all the higher level classes are just regular 4 time, and then the Saturday are with the jump off, and the Sunday are joker classes, as an example. So that would be like kind of a standard schedule, but there's a lot of flexibility in organizing the shows. So whatever the show organizer wants to put on, we have something really, really cool that's called combined. That's one of the modes. And combined, we use a lot in 95s and meter fives. So in the next step, pretty much after the style classes, that means you ride a style round first. And if you get a 7.5 or better, which is a good score, a medium high score, 7.5, if you get a 7.5 or better in your style round, you stay in the ring for a jump off 4 time. So that's kind of the transition between these style classes and timed classes. So we use that quite a bit coming out of the style system where we use the combined classes. And then, yeah, I mean, typically, if we have a meter 35, meter 45, that's typically a 4 time class or with a jump off. I mean, not very often this would be a style class. But, if you're a show organizer and you say, hey, I have a lot of junior riders that are able to ride meter 25s and meter 30 already, I have some, then you could say, okay, on Friday, we're going to do a style meter 35, and then on Saturday it's with a jump off, and Sunday it's 4 time or something like that. So there's some flexibility, but generally speaking, it's relatively normal jumping as you know it in the higher levels. But what makes it really different is the lower level style classes. And for us, one of our main things, we talked about it last time, is that we want to see people in different rings. We don't want this narrow, I'm a jumper, I'm a hunter, I'm a dressage rider. So these style classes are really also awesome for hunters, dressage riders. Even they can say, you know what, I'm just going to go in there and jump a few cross rails. So they open a lot of paths. And we don't really look at it as jumping. We don't really want to label it jumping. I mean, we kind of have to label it jumping, but like we decided a couple months ago, we don't even want to call these classes style jumping classes anymore, because people are kind of scared of the word jumping a little bit. Not scared, but trainers think, oh, but I cannot take my lower level hunter riders in there because they're jumping classes. No, they're style classes. So we're going to go with the word style. And the idea is we have a nice thing for everybody who's interested in that. In some of our latest social media posts, we have a little pyramid. What do you want to call it? Like a drawing, not a drawing, like what is it called? Like a graphic. We have a pyramid graphic where you can kind of see, okay, the whole bottom is style classes, and then it divides into hunters and into jumpers. That's kind of the idea. So when the style portion of it at 85 centimeter ends, then you can say, I'm a good enough rider now to go into the UDJC hunters, because they start at 2'6" and they're way more complicated to ride than your regular hunter classes. So let's talk about the hunters a little bit. We want to get the hunters back to where they came from. We want to get the hunters back to kind of a little bit towards fox hunting, so we say you have to be a good rider in order to go into the hunters, because the hunters are complicated to ride. We have 12, 13 jumps in our hunter courses. We have rollbacks, we have combinations, we have trot jumps. We have pretty much every single one of our courses is a derby-like course. And in order to ride these courses, you have to develop some skills. And we just think the best way to develop these skills is in style jumping and dressage classes. So, go move up through the levels into 85, 95 centimeter classes, 3 foot kind of style classes, 2'9", and then go into the hunters. Instead of starting with the hunters at this very, very low level, because we think that a lot of riders that are labeled a hunter their whole life, unfortunately, for whatever reason, they don't really develop at all. And they get stuck at 2 foot and they stay there the rest of their lives. And that's sad to see. So we just turn it around a little bit. We say, learn how to ride first and then go into the hunters, and not learn how to ride in the hunters and then become a jumper at some point, so that's upside down completely.
Yeah. Interesting. And so in this model, it's not that the jumpers are more forgiving, because they're still style classes and you're held to a high standard, and certainly like the standard of your peers. But is it correct that the hunter classes are just more complicated in terms of what's being asked, or is it
Yeah.
also like the judging is more critical?
No, the judging is different. The judging is totally different, but they're more complicated because we ask a lot more questions in a course. It's not outside line diagonal, always the same 5-6 strides. It's the courses are more complex, and the judging is totally different. So we took the judging from the working hunters in England and pretty much kind of remodeled it a little bit and use it for the UDJC hunters. So we score the hunters in 4 different categories, and you get a specific amount of points per category. So the maximum points you can get is 100 points. Kind of similar to the style jumping judging or the dressage judging. So it's always based off 100 points, respectively 10 points kind of categories. So your seed and eights in the hunters in UDJC always is worth 30 points of the 100. So if you have a very good seed and you're a very good rider, you would get 28 points or 29 points or 27 points out of 30. The next category, also for 30 points, is your rhythm and your forward movement and your balance. So we want the horses to be naturally forward in front of the leg. We don't want to see any dead, drugged hunters that don't move their ears and don't move their tails. We want the hunters to be awake and forward and going. That is worth 30 points as well, with the rhythm, of course. Your next category for 20 points is track and planning. Because our courses are more complicated to ride, it's way more important, of course, to know where you're at and to have a really good track. That's 20 points. And another 20 points is for the quality of the horse. So as you can see, we take this whole thing, quality of the horse wise, down to a bare minimum. So in other words, again, if you are a very good rider and you show up with a horse that is not your typical hunter type horse, well, it doesn't really matter because you can still win the class. And in reality, these 20 points at the end, that's not 20%. That's technically only 10% plus minus, because nobody gets 0 points, So if you come with a horse that is not your typical hunter, let's say with a little spicier thoroughbred, um, you would get 10 points. I'm just, 10 points, 9 points maybe. If you come with your fancy $500,000 warm blood hunter, you get 19 points or 20 points, So in reality, it's only a 10-point kind of difference there. You know what I mean?
That's an
So
expensive 10 points,
it's
like
a very, very
$490,000.
$490,000 points. Yeah.
Wow.
So yes, also in the hunters, we want to see good riding. It all, we have to bring a system back that teaches people and that rewards good riding, and not the nonsense we're doing right now. Whoever buys the most expensive horse gets all the blue ribbons. I mean, there's plenty of time in your career to buy expensive horses. When you ride meter 50s, then you need to buy some expensive horses, probably. You know what I mean? So it's high level dressage. I mean, all of that, yes, yes, but learn how to ride first. How about that? Let's everybody learn how to ride, and then we worry about expensive horses later. Instead of saying, "Oh, if I want to be competitive in a 2-foot class, I need a $200,000." It just makes zero sense. So
Mhm.
that's the hunter approach. And every division, every hunter division in UDJC, at least at the bigger shows, at the circuit shows, it's always 5 classes throughout 3 days. So Friday is always an under saddle class, but also in the under saddle class, they're a little bit more competitive. The judges might take your stirrups away. The judges let you ride collected canter, hand gallop. I mean, they ask some things. It's not just bouncing around. They ask you to work in those flat classes, and then Saturday there's over fences and a handy, and Sunday there's an over fence and a handy. So we have 2 over fence classes or regular hunter classes, um, but also of course 10, 12 jumps and complicated to ride, um, plus 2 handies and a flat class in every single division. If we have smaller foundation shows that are only 1 or 2 day shows, of course, then we scale that down and you have 2 or 3 classes. But at the circuit shows, it's 5 classes per division.
Got it. And
Um,
does the transparency happen in the hunters as well, in terms of the judges? Do they get on the microphone after
Feedback,
each
yes.
ride again?
Yep. Yep. After each ride, the judge gives you feedback, tells you, "Hey, I have you really high here at 28 points in your seed and eights, but you lost the rhythm back there. You realized it yourself, so I have you only at 22 points here in rhythm and balance, but you made up with a really good track." So you get your feedback, you get your points right there on the microphone. Super interesting for the parents also. That's,
Yeah.
I mean, the parents typically, they sit there, and even after 5 years, they still don't know what is going on. And just, we just try to explain what's going on, and we try to help everybody understanding, why did you get that score? Why did the
It's
judge see it that way?
it's like auditing a clinic.
Yep. Yep.
It's
It's not as much as a clinic, of
right.
course. You get a minute of feedback or so,
Mhm.
but it's of course it's good, because the judge gives you one or two, sorry, one or two important things to take home to work with, and that's worth a lot. Typically, even, actually, you're right, because even if you go to a clinic, I mean, all you technically get, or all you're able to take home anyways, is one and a half things theoretically. So yeah, it's good. But then at most of the shows, we also have clinics with the judges on warm-up day, by the way. So at the bigger circuit shows, Thursday is always warm-up day. And we have, in all 3 disciplines, we offer clinics with the judges. So whoever wants to come on Thursday can ride with the judges, and get an idea of how they see things and what they're asking and all that. So that's a cool thing too.
That is very cool. Yeah, I mean, last time I had this feeling too, but now that you've kind of figured it out, it all makes so much sense. I like that in hunters you have that, like, track and planning score, because I feel like we're all so used to walking our courses, but it's kind of like, if you get it done, you get it done. It's nice
Yeah.
to be a little bit accountable to actually having that plan and executing it.
Yep. Yep. And whenever we find a cool field, we put the hunters in the field. So we try to stay away from arenas with the hunters. Sometimes at the bigger equestrian centers, it's not possible. We have to go into arenas, but at some facilities, we put them out on the grass. That's where they belong. It's like we just got to go back to where it came from,
The
because
roots,
that
yeah.
made sense. Yeah,
That's
back to
pretty
the
cool.
roots.
Let's
Yeah.
talk about dressage. How does that differ
Dressage.
from what somebody would normally be used to at a dressage show?
Yeah, dressage is quite different as well. So we have regular dressage tests. They're called benchmark tests. They're pretty much dressage tests as you know them. They start at the smallest dressage test we have is the level B dressage, which is pretty much a flat class. That's like 6 to 8 people in one group. Typically, they ride behind each other, walk, trot, canter, and there's also a beginner walk, trot. So that is the very smallest class we have, a very basic class, if you want to call that dressage. It happens in the dressage ring. But then regular dressage starts at level E. Level E is pretty much training level. We have regular benchmark tests. They go from technically training level all the way to 4th level, and there's always 3 different tests per level. The trick, though, is for these benchmark tests, you have to qualify. We'll talk a little bit about jumping qualification later too, but also in dressage, you have to qualify. You cannot show up in UDJC and say, "Oh, I'm going to write a 4th level dressage test." Then we say, you're not going to write a 4th level dressage test. You need to qualify your way up. That's a very, very important thing, and we have that also for the jumpers. We just have to do that for the welfare of the horse. I mean, every single country in the world has a qualification system, obviously, just not in the US, and it shows. So for the welfare of the horse, for the safety, not so much in dressage, but in jumping, for the safety of the rider and the horse, for the sanity of the trainers who have parents and kids pressuring them to move up levels, we need to have something in place to stop that. So long story short, you need to, after we created the regular benchmark test, we said, okay, so what are we going to do now with higher level riders, with riders that are really, truly Prix St. George riders? We don't want to tell them you have to go into a training level test and get 3 good scores, and then go to a 1st level test and get 3 good scores, and so on. But we also didn't want to accept USDF scores, because the scoring I've seen in the last 5 years, we don't want to have anything to do with that. So we said, okay, we need to come up with something. So what we invented is the ability class concept. And these ability classes, in the beginning, when we created them, we saw them as a short qualification system. So how they work is you have 3 riders in the ring at the same time, and they ride the so-called free part. The judges give the riders, they ride around like in a clinic or a lesson, or just scrambled in the arena, 3 riders. And the judges give them level-specific movements to ride. So let's say in a 3rd level ability class, the judges would say, okay, now everybody rides some shoulder ins, everybody rides some shoulder ins. Now everybody rides some half passes, everybody rides some half passes, and so on. I have a battery issue here. Do you want to? I have to get my
Yeah,
charger.
no problem.
Can
It's
you
okay.
pause that real quick?
We edit after, so you're good. Don't worry, you're good.
Hold on, give me a second. Ugh, I don't even know where it is. Okay. Okay, good. So I'm just gonna tap into the ability classes again from the beginning. So the ability classes work a little bit differently. You have 3 riders in the ring at the same time. and they ride around scramble just like in the lesson or a clinic, and the judges give them level specific movements to ride. So the judges would say, I want everybody to ride in a third level, as an example. I want everybody to ride some shoulder ins, and everybody rides some shoulder ins. I want everybody to ride some flying changes, and everybody rides some flying changes, and so on. That free part lasts about 10 minutes, and it's scored with 4 different collectives. So the riders would get a level specific collective score. They change a little bit throughout the levels, but in third level, as an example, it's the rider seat and 8, it's submission, it's accuracy, and stuff like that. So different collective scores for the free part. The cool thing is it's all judged 100% on the rider. So the quality of the horse in ability classes does not matter. We don't judge impulsion, we don't judge gaits. So if you come into a level S, which is our 4th level test, with a super well ridden quarter horse, and you are an awesome dressage rider, you win that class, because we literally don't care about the quality of the horse in ability classes. So, and there is no qualification for that. So that's why we kind of thought about it as a short qualification thing, you know? So we said, okay, if you think you are a 4th level rider, then come into a 4th level ability class where we judge your ability as a rider. And if it's true, if you're really a 4th level rider and you're good, then you cross qualify for the regular 4th level test, for the regular S class test, and everything below that. So
Question on
that's
that.
the idea behind the ability classes. So after that free part, everybody gets feedback. So the judge again talks to everybody for a minute and 2 and tells you, hey, I loved your shoulder ins, I loved your half passes, all your lateral work was really good, but your flying changes need some work. Why don't you try this or that? And then after the feedback part, everybody individually writes a very small pattern, a regular dressage pattern, but not 5-6 minutes. It's more like 2 minutes, where we want to see, okay, you're not able to write the stuff freely in the arena. You're also able to put it together in a test setting. So that is judged 2, and then your score from the ability part, from the free part, and your score from the pattern part combined, yada yada yada, is your end score. And if you have 3 good scores in ability classes, you cross qualify for that particular benchmark level. Does that make sense? Is that understandable?
It is understandable. I have a couple clarifying questions. Do you have
Yeah.
to have the horse, if you're at 4th level, do you need to qualify in the ability class with the horse that you intend to ride in a 4th level class, or are you
No,
qualified as a rider?
no, you qualify as a rider. All that is all the performance levels. We'll talk about the performance levels in a minute. All the performance levels are on the rider.
Got it. Okay, so you qualify as a rider, and just to clarify that last thing you said, you need 3 different ability classes at the 4th level in order to do a
Yeah.
4th level dressage
Yeah.
test.
Yeah. You
And
have
they
to show us 3 times that you are a 4th level rider. Turns out though, nobody wants to ride regular dressage classes anymore. Everybody wants to ride ability classes, because everybody says, oh my God, this is so much more fun. I'm not in the arena by myself. In the free part, I get to walk a couple seconds if I want to. I can breathe. The judge is not looking at me all the time. I get some really good feedback. And afterwards, the test is only 2.5 minutes and not 5 minutes. So 99% of dressage riders are amateurs, you know, and a lot of them just enjoy the ability classes a lot more than the regular dressage test. So instead of, like, you know, we saw it in the beginning as a quick, do your little quick ability qualifier kind of thing and then go into the regular dressage. No, everybody wants to hang out in ability classes. So that's a little bit the future, I think, of dressage. Maybe, you know, I
Yeah.
mean, regular dressage classes will always stay, obviously, for competitive riders, for professionals, for high level. I mean, obviously, you know, and we love them, of course, but these ability classes turned out to be really, really cool. So a lot
Yeah.
of riders love them. And even in benchmark, you know, when it comes to the quality of the horse, let's put it that way, the higher the level goes, the more the quality of the horse matters, because at the end of the day, you know, dressage is a sport that is being measured on the quality of the horse. So if we look at 4th level, Prix St. George, everything above that, of course that is judged on the horse. But in these lower level classes, in training level, first level, second level, we don't really look at the quality of the horse. We don't really judge the quality of the horse. Even in benchmark classes, a lot of the scores are really based on how well does the rider ride it. You know how many pathetic papers I can show you from USDF shows where the judges in training level, in intro level walk trot tests, they put in there not enough engagement in the hind end, not enough self carriage in the front. It's mind blowing, you know. I mean, this is a walk trot kit. Have a good seat and survive, and you're good, and ride into the corner. You know what I mean? It's like
Yeah.
it's yeah.
It
So
kind of
the higher
reminds
the
me.
level go, yeah,
I've been speaking to a lot of people who do Western dressage, and that kind of seems like a medium between what you're talking about because they allow the horse to be the horse it is a little bit more than USDF dressage. I know it's totally different, but it
yeah,
did seem like a step in the right direction in that respect that more horses are welcome and could have success.
yeah, yeah,
This ability class learning that you had is so fun and makes so much sense. Like the number of, especially like lower level adult amateur riders who say they just like black out when they go into that ring and there's so much stress and pressure and anxiety and being able to show what you're actually capable of in an environment that doesn't elicit that same sort of like, I don't know, feeling
yeah,
and performance that isn't really indicative of the person's actual like abilities is very cool and it makes a lot of sense. And
yeah.
it kind of reminds me of these other sports. I don't know if we talked about it last time, but like golf is a sport that's kind of trying to appeal to like actually be what people want a little bit more versus spending 4 hours on the course. Like, how do we make it more fun for people?
Well,
Um,
look
yeah.
at the Savannah Bananas. You
Okay,
know, I don't.
I
Yeah,
was gonna bring up Jesse Cole already because I
yeah.
think that you so Jesse Cole is the founder of Savannah Bananas. Anybody who's not gone down this rabbit hole, go down it because he
Go
is
down.
so freaking inspiring.
Yeah,
But I see you not mimicking, but like emulating that sort of let's rethink this model. What do people actually
yeah,
want?
yeah. Just with the difference, you know, we didn't invent a new sport. I mean, what we did invent were these ability classes. You know, that's one of the biggest pieces that we kind of added to the mix, as an invention or whatever you want to call it. All the other stuff are proven systems. You know, we kind of try to take the best systems from all over the world, and scrambled it together in what we think is the best system in order to develop horses correctly and develop riders correctly. So none of this is rocket science. None of this is invented, other than the ability and some other little things. I mean, everything is proven, you know, from the best systems in the world. Even the hunter judging
Mhm.
from the working hunters in England, and that's where it all comes from. You know, so that's I'm not sitting here saying, "Oh yeah, come on, let's try this. Let's see if this works." I mean, we know it works because it
Mhm.
works a lot better in other countries than it works here. So, you know,
I had one more question just come to me on the ability classes. Do those need to be taken at different shows, those 3, or on different
no,
horses? Or could
no,
you take
no.
3 at one show, same horse,
Yeah,
and check your
yeah.
box?
You
Okay,
can take three at the same horse at the same show.
cool.
And you can also have, that's actually a question that we get a lot, especially on the lower end, um, for because a lot of riders do like ENA. So I don't want to make it too complicated, but you can also mix. You can have two scores instead of having three scores in the lower level benchmark to move up. Let's say you need three scores in training level to move to first level in benchmark, or you need three scores in ability training to get to benchmark training first. Well, now I'm stuttering around, but you know what I mean. You
Yeah.
know what. So you need three in the level below in benchmark, or three at the same level in ability to cross qualify. You can also have two and two. So if you have two from the lower level benchmark and you have two from the same level ability, so that's a total of four scores. But you can get that on Friday and Saturday and then ride the higher level already on Sunday, theoretically, so you can get your qualification done technically in one show. And even if it's a 2-day show, you can, with the 2 and 2, you can get your qualification done at least at the bottom level, within one show.
Yeah, cool.
But yeah.
Um, should we switch to talking about qualifications for jumping?
Yes. So that is a new thing that we started 2026. We didn't start it earlier because we didn't have a software solution for it, and now we do. We have in dressage and in jumping so-called performance levels. The performance levels go from 1 to 8. 1 is the lowest. If you're performance level 1 in jumping, you're only allowed to ride 40 and 50 centimeter classes, or the little itty bitty stuff. You need placings, and you need to be successful in these classes. You need a specific amount of placings, a specific amount of points in order to move up to the next level. And that goes all the way up to performance level 8. When you're performance level 8, you're allowed to ride all the big meter 50 stuff. So become successful, get placings, do well in whatever level you're at, and then you qualify for the higher levels. And that's the same for dressage, technically. So we also put dressage into these performance levels. For people that come in from the outside, we just talked about the dressage path, how you come in from the outside. You do it through ability classes. What we do in jumping, we do it kind of similar, because it's a little bit of a challenge now in the first few years. The system with the performance levels is super easy and super self-explaining for every 5-year-old that starts riding in UDJC, because they kind of move up the performance levels without even really realizing, they
Right.
automatically kind of move up the performance levels. But somebody who comes in from the outside and is a meter 15 rider, again, same issue then with dressage. What are we going to do? We cannot tell them, oh yeah, you better start riding some 40 centimeter stuff here, and move your way up. So we got to find a way to do that. And what we do is, let's say a meter 15 rider comes to the first UDJC show. They would go to the show office, or it happens in an app, and they say, I want to ride meter 15s. So we give them performance level 5. That's the performance level you need to ride meter 15 temporarily. And then they have to ride 3 rounds at a meter 15, and 2 of them have to be ridden well. They have to pass, technically, the judging, if you want. So they're not specific ability classes. They're not special classes or something. They're just part of their regular class. But the judge, after the round, says, yes, you rode that really well. That's how you're supposed to ride a meter 15 class, and then you technically pass. Or the judge says, you did not ride that very well, and we don't want to see you in meter 15. We think you should be at a meter 5. So you have to pass 2 out of those 3 rounds, and then you keep that performance level. Then you lock it in, you keep that performance level, and then you work your way up from there if you want to. If the judge says 2 times or even 3 times, you did not pass, then we put you 1 performance level below. So then we would put you into performance level 4, and you would have to ride meter 5 classes max. And when you had enough placings, enough success in a meter 5, then you're in the system, then you move up to a meter 15. So, and that's not even connected to your placing or something like that. So somebody could theoretically win the meter 15 class, and the judge would still say, you won the class, but it was a horrible ride. I don't want to see you winning
Right.
like this. You didn't pass your ability. You can also knock 3 poles down. You can even ride towards jump 4, do a circle because you didn't see the distance, something happened, whatever. You ride a circle and jump in front of jump 4, and then continue your course. And the judge says, well, you had 11 penalty points, but you rode that really well. You know what I mean? So it's not connected to your result in these ability kind of portions of that class. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So that's kind of how we try to categorize everybody into the correct performance level when they cross in from the side.
So, out of curiosity, I'm thinking about, obviously my like most familiarity is in eventing, and if there's a pair that doesn't look safe, that's the technical delegate's job generally to say, you're out. Like, we're not continuing anymore, whether they're mid-course on cross country or they've just finished their show jumping round. They just need to make the call whether they don't want to see that horse and rider anymore for the weekend because it's not safe. What happens if, in the example you gave, let's say, I mean, there's two ways this could go. You haven't seen the person before. They come from the outside and they want to be a level 4 rider. So they enter that class. And not only do they not pass, but the judge is like, this is dicey. I don't want to see them at level 3. I don't really want to, like, I don't think they're
I
ready
won't see
for
them at
any.
all. I
Yeah, I
don't
don't
see
want to
them
see
at
them
all.
anymore. So there's that case. And then the other case would be, this person got great scores on one horse, got their level 4 rider now, but they come back on another horse and now they look unsafe on this new horse. What do you guys do for that sort of thing?
I mean, there's not, I mean, so first of all, what we always try to use is common sense, you know? So the judges also talk to the rider. So let's say, you know, if something really dicey happens in the round, the judge would take the rider over to the judge's booth and give him a little speech and tell him, hey, this is not how you behave. This is not how you do this, you know, whatever, if the rider goes after the horse. I mean, so there's a lot of interaction between the judges and the riders anyways. And if somebody is really unsafe and really, you know, on a crazy horse and a crazy level, whatever, the judge would tell them, listen, you gotta step 2 levels down, and you have to, you know, don't do it anymore that weekend, you know, figure it out on the lower level. So the judges would have a good talk with them, and typically common sense kicks in. I mean, to be honest, we didn't have the case yet that we had the cases a few times, especially in the lower levels, interestingly, you know, where somebody wanted to ride a 60, or somebody did ride a 65 centimeter class, but they were barely able to hang on in the canter, kind of, you know, that kind of level. And then the judges talk to the trainer and say, listen, this is not gonna happen tomorrow, please, you know, put the kid in a 40 centimeter class at the most, or even a dressage class. And normally that fixes it, you know. So we haven't had that problem yet that we said, hey, go down a level, and the other person said, you know, screw you, I do whatever I want. If that is the case, and I think that's not really a scenario that would happen a lot anyways, to be honest, but if, then yeah, I don't know, then we would have to get, you know, the show organizer would to have to get involved, and or me or whatever, you know, and we would find a solution for that. But normally we can deal with common sense quite a bit. But the performance levels are always on the rider. It's not on the horse, it's always on the rider. And for another interesting thing is, when it comes to classifying these performance levels, riders, and there's not 100% nice solution for that. So we went with what we thought is the best solution. We ran into the issue. Let's say you come to the show and you're normally, you can even be let's say you're a Grand Prix rider. You come to the show and you're a Grand Prix rider, but you brought your young 85 centimeter horse to the show, you know, and we would say, okay, for that show, you need, you know, whatever it is, level 3, performance level 3 to ride your 85 centimeter class. And then the person comes a week later and says, well, but now I have my Grand Prix horse, I want to ride a meter 50. Then, and this is how we do this, people over 21 years old can move up in performance levels technically at any time on a different horse, at a different show. So you would bring your 85 centimeter horse, we give you performance level 3, and then you come back in a week and you say, now I need performance level 7, and I can actually prove it because I got my good horse with me. And then you can jump technically, or you can get that performance level 7 because that's where you actually belong. Riders under 21 cannot do that. Riders under 21 lock in once we give them a performance level, that's the performance level they have, and they cannot jump performance levels if you want. So I mean, they can qualify through the regular process, but they cannot jump performance levels. And the reason we did that, so we don't have a professional and an amateur status in UDJC. We'll talk about that in a minute, but we don't have that. So we cannot say, oh, professionals can do that, but amateurs cannot.
Right.
So we kind of had to find a line, and we said, everybody who's probably a higher level rider and a kind of professional, you know, typically they're probably over 21. So, and people that are, you know, amateurs, and I don't want to sound very weird now, but like, 40, 50-year-old amateurs, right? They're also not typically the ones that try to jump levels like crazy and take advantage of, you know what I mean? So most of the time when we see these riders in classes that are not appropriate with horses that are not appropriate and all that, it typically happens below 21 years old, kind of, you know what I mean? So we
Wild
said,
ones.
yes, the wild ones. So,
And you
and
did
also the ones pushing the trainers and forcing the
right.
trainers, that stuff happens typically in juniors, young riders, that's
The
not
wild
really a
ones
thing.
and their parents.
Yes, the wild ones and their parents. So that's kind of why we drew the line. Young riders and younger, so 21 and younger, those are the ones. If you come to your first UDJC show and you get performance level 4, you have performance level 4, and you have to work your way up from there. And I know it's a little bit, in some cases it might be a little bit inconvenient for somebody, if you're really good horse, your performance level 6 horse is injured, and you only have your young horse or something like that. There might be an exception every now and then. We can still make a couple of exceptions here and there, for special cases. But in general, we said if you are younger than 21, you cannot jump up. And the reason we said that is what we don't want to see, and we see that a lot. Somebody is a 75, 85 centimeter rider with their horse, and they do okay. Then they go and buy a $200,000 horse, and they go into a meter 5, meter 15. They're not supposed to be in there. And even if they do halfway decent well in these classes, you cannot skip 3 levels. You cannot even skip 1 level. You need so much low level experience and rounds and rounds and rounds and rounds to become a really good rider. You cannot skip. You cannot say, well, just because I'm okay riding a meter 5 class now with my really good horse, that doesn't mean you can skip 85s, 95s, meter classes.
Mhm.
You need miles and miles and miles and miles. When I grew up, I rode hundreds of classes in the same level before I moved to the next level, and everybody who is a good rider did that. You cannot skip levels. And if you do so, it's going to hit you at some point, depending on your talent, depending on your money, depending on your horses. Some of them get hit at a meter, some of them get hit at a meter 40, but they get hit. You hit a wall if you don't have this, endless miles of experience. So we don't want you to get a better horse and then start skipping levels. That's why we said we don't give the younger riders the option to kind of move up, short-term move, you know what I mean?
Yeah,
Short move up with
right.
a better horse. You still have to get your placings, you still have to get your points, you still need to get the miles, and then you move up a little slower. And it's not like it's not like we're careful with that, because we're aware of the situation that there aren't. I mean, in Germany, you have 5 different shows within 20 minutes of a drive every single weekend. Here you don't, so we don't require hundreds of rounds, obviously. If you're really good in a particular level, in order to move up a performance level, we talk about maybe, depends on the points, but about 15 placings maybe. So normally you would ride 20, 25 rounds in a particular level before you're kind of allowed to move up if you're good. But those 20, that's already a tiny amount of rounds. We kind of have to, we cannot say 200, obviously, but even 25, I'd rather put it at 100. But then it takes you, there aren't that many shows. So we work on this. We're working on this big show schedule. We're working on the foundation shows, on having shows accessible everywhere. But it's going to take us another year or two, to really have 1,000 shows in the country. But yes. So long story short, you got to move up performance levels. So here's the coolest thing, though. Pros and amateurs, get out of here with this ridiculous status of professionals and amateurs. You have thousands of professionals that should not be professionals. You have thousands of amateurs that actually should be professionals. I mean, it's just so mixed, and there's no way of controlling it. Oh, but Susie's riding horses for money. That's what Linda said, and then I'm like, well, Susie, do you ride horses for money? No, I don't. Or what do I say? Well, show me your bank account. I want to see because Linda said so. It's just nonsense. So the only reason a professional and an amateur status should be there is to keep riders that are not supposed to be in a specific level out of the ranking, or not. With other words, you don't want good riders to take ribbons away from kids. but
Mhm.
you still cannot treat those. When professionals come down into lower classes, you can still not treat it as a training round because the horses need a show record. And so we had to find a solution for that. And what we said is, get rid of the ridiculous amateur and professional status. All we care about is your performance level. And that's for all three disciplines. If if somebody with a higher performance level goes 21 centimeters or 20 centimeters and more into a lower class, then we push them in the ranking to the side. So how does this work? Somebody who is performance level 7 and is allowed to ride a meter 35 class, if they go into a meter 15, which is 30 centimeters, that technically kicks in then, goes into a meter 15 class or meter 5 class, we if they get a second place, we push them to the side and we give them an additional second place, and we move the kid that was in third place up to second. So nobody has a disadvantage. We also don't create a new ranking. So it's not like all the high level riders, they start at first place again. That's not what it is. If you deserve the second place and you had the kid beat you, you get a second place. You don't get a first place. So we just push all the higher level riders, and it doesn't matter how high they ride. So there's not a bunch of different rankings. It's one ranking. It's one different rank. It's, are you a higher level rider? Yes, we push you to the side. So in that case, it's super fair. Nobody has a disadvantage. Everybody gets the placing they deserve. Everybody gets the points they deserve, and so on. And everybody's happy because the professionals or the higher level riders get to get their show records for the young horses and the experience for the young horses and their ribbon, and the kid does not get a ribbon taken away from them. And that's the only solution we need. We don't need professionals, we don't need amateurs. We need to see, you are too good for this class, and
Right.
the reason you're in here is to get probably experience on a younger horse, so we push you into a different ranking. No problem. That's it.
I
That's
love it.
how easy the fix is. We stole
It
that from Austria, by the way. The
I was gonna
Austrians
say,
do
you
that.
make it sound easy, but if you put me in a room and you're like, "Fi figure out this puzzle," I would be like, "I think I need a little bit of I need some wine, I need some time,"
Yeah.
but it makes so much sense when you say it.
Yeah.
Um, you have really helped us get a full picture of what it's like to participate in UDJC, and just a full familiarity, I think, with the organization and the purpose and what it's like to participate. So, thank you for that. Will you remind people where they can find UDJC online, more information if they want it? Um, and then if they want to show, remind people where the shows are happening.
Of almost everywhere. So we have the circuit shows, the bigger shows in Texas and in Florida, and then we have foundation shows in 10 different states or so. They're all on the website. We have shows in Colorado, in Oklahoma, in North Carolina, em- in Chicago,
It's
everywhere.
amazing.
So yeah, you can get all that information on the website. Website is udjc.org. Um, Maybe you can put that in the description down there.
Yep, will
There's a
do.
link. It's udjc.org/price list. So that leads to two different documents, a circuit show and a foundation show price list. That is pretty much a short version of the rule book. So that's like a 10-15 minute read. I know everybody hates reading these days. It's before you go to bed, it's a 10-15 minute read, and it pretty much guides you through all the important things in UDJC. Afterwards, you kind of know almost exactly what to expect at the show. One thing I really want to say is, guys, don't be scared to come to a show. A lot of people think, oh my God, I lost this guy after 3 minutes. This is so much information. This is so different. Well, at the end of the day, it's just riding the horse. And the easiest thing to understand everything, or the easiest way to understand, is just come to the show. And I promise, after 2 days, you know what it's about. And it's not rocket science, and it's also not a different sport. Bring your horse. It's the same show you go to every weekend. It's just a little different, and you'll learn it and go with the flow. Don't be scared of all the different things. Nothing's going to happen. I promise. Everybody has a good time. Everybody's friendly. You're going to have the most fun you ever had at a horse show. Even though it might be overwhelming, it's not.
Yeah, you guys can do it. It's gonna be great, and I can't wait to hear about Ride IQ members who start participating, and hopefully this was the nudge that they needed. And David, it's such a treat to know you, and I hope that we can just stay in touch because I'm a fan of what you're doing. So, I wish you all of the good luck in that, and I know
Thanks.
people listening are a big part of making that successful. So, together we
Yes.
can all make it happen.
Yeah, we can only build the house, but the riders have to fill it. It's not that's not on us. I mean, we can build all of this, but then people need to show up and people need to say yes. We need this. We It's time for changes. Everybody has been bitching and bitching and bitching for years about the existing status. So now that is the chance now to change it, and I feel like this is the only chance we're gonna get.
Yeah,
So we better take it.
let's do it, guys.
Yeah.
Thank you
All
so
right.
much, David. This was a treat, and thank you everyone